Okay, so let's make a start. Welcome to the webinar, everybody. Tonight's training, as you can see there, is team building for beginners. And this is one of a series of 8 webinars that I do. The first 2 there, as you can see, are all about getting started in the first few weeks. So I know Jim, who I was speaking to briefly earlier, has just been in the business for 6 weeks. So those will be kind of very useful for Jim and any other new starters. Garth, who's only been in the business for less than a week, I think, as well. And so 1, 2 and 3 are all the kind of the retail side. Then tonight and next week we're going to be talking about team building, specifically getting started on team building tonight, and then next week we'll be supporting team members. And then 6, 7 and 8 are all about kind of the personal development side of the business, goal setting, attitude, that sort of thing. But as you can see there, number 4 is what we're on tonight. All of these webinars, all 8 of them, I do them 1 a week every Wednesday night. It normally takes 8 weeks to go around, although every now and again I have to miss one if I'm off doing something else, so it might be 9 weeks. But they're all recorded, and I'll show you right at the end where you can find them if you wanted to catch up with one of the others or repeat this one. So, team building for beginners, what we're going to cover tonight. So we'll start off just by asking whether or not you have to build a team. Everyone's kind of very familiar with the catalogue side of the business when you're first starting off. And maybe you don't need to build a team, you can just stick with the catalogues if you want to. But actually, hopefully I'll show you that it will be useful if you do build a team. And if you decide to, then what tools do you need, how to get started, a little bit about different rods in the pond, which will make sense. Some of you will know what I'm talking about, some of you it might be a bit new, but hopefully that will make sense in a moment as well. And then if you do find somebody who might be interested in earning a bit of extra money, that's that kind of person, we call them a lead, what to do when you found somebody who's replied to one of your adverts, what information to send to them, and then following up. That's a really important part of the whole process. So that's what we're going to cover. It should take about half an hour or so. I'll try and look out for any questions, but if you're typing something in and I don't spot it, feel free to remind me at the end, because I'll hang around for 10 minutes or so once we've finished it, just to answer any questions that I don't cover. So, quick question, bit of audience participation here. Do you have to build a team if you're a Kleeneze distributor? Yep. And Amanda and Andrew say no. Gareth says no. Yeah. Gareth. Hi, Gareth. Nice to see you on board. Yeah, Gareth says no. Yep, and of course you're right. We have a lot of really successful distributors in Kleeneze that are earning a lot of money just from a fantastic customer base. So you don't have to. But and in fact, most distributors don't. If you look at the figures, certainly in my experience and as I was taught by my upline, a lot of distributors are really just kind of happy with their 50, 100, 200 pounds a week on the catalogue side, and they don't really want to get into the team building side. So it's absolutely no problem at all if you don't want to go team building. But it's important to know that you can, because you never know. You might start off with the intention of just doing the cataloguing, and often somebody becomes a team builder almost by accident. You could drop a catalogue through a letterbox and one of your customers says, well, you know what, my husband's just been made redundant. Is there any chance he could join Kleeneze? And of course you would then welcome him into your team, hopefully with a bit of help from your sponsor or your upline if you're not sure how to do it yourself. But that's quite often a way that people get into team building, simply that almost somebody asks them about it rather than them actively searching out people to join. So, if you don't have to build a team, but it's useful to do it, then why should you build a team? Well, there's a number of different reasons. Firstly, you can build a much bigger income with a team. Just the law of averages, there's a limit to how many catalogues you can physically put out yourself. And obviously if you've got a team of 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 people, you're getting a far larger number of catalogues put out, and just because of the way the compensation plan works, you can earn a lot more from a big team. The other big benefit is if you're putting your own catalogues out, obviously you're earning money from your own efforts, putting your catalogues out, delivering orders to your customers. But if you're ever ill, and I don't mean just a bit of a cold so you can't put your catalogues out, but let's suppose you have to be in hospital for a couple of weeks, or you go away on holiday for a fortnight, then if there's nobody putting your catalogues out for you, then obviously you're not getting paid for that time while you're away. Whereas if you built a team, and those team members are obviously earning money for themselves, putting their catalogues out while you're away or ill, then you're still earning money from your bonuses from the work your team's doing. So there are some big benefits in team building if you decide to do that. So if you do decide to get into team building, what kind of tools do you need to get started? Well, it's really useful. One of the tools that's really useful is a system called Easy Reach. Hopefully most of you will be familiar with it. It's basically a telephone training system that everybody in Kleeneze gets when they first start off. It's free for 3 months, and then there's a monthly charge of, I think it's about £8 a month after that, if you decide you want to continue it after that trial period. And basically, Gavin Scott, one of the most successful distributors in the company, sends down messages every morning from distributors explaining just their stories, how things are working for them, and these stories of, like single mum with a couple of kids, how she sort of built up her business to earn sort of £100 a week and just helps her pay some bills or whatever it might be, are really useful stories to have kind of in your locker when you're starting to talk to prospects and people who might be in a similar situation to the person relating to that story. So Easy Reach is a great source of kind of stories and hints and tips from kind of successful distributors in the business. What else do you need? Well, some kind of diary. What you'll find when you're prospecting, you'll have people reply to your adverts. You try and call them back up. They want a bit more time to have a look at it. You need to call them back in a couple of days. So you need to be able to manage your time, and a diary of some kind, whether that's a paper diary in a notebook or some kind of computer calendar, is really helpful in that. Similarly, you need some kind of what we call a lead book. That's basically a book to write down the details of the people who you've spoken to. So this might just be friends and family initially, or it might be people that have replied to adverts or anything like that. Again, you can't possibly remember all the details of everybody that you speak to, so you need some way of making a note of that. And that can be a notebook, it can be like a card file, or it could be on a computer, whatever you feel happiest with. And obviously you need a telephone. You do need to be able to talk to your prospects. You can't just have adverts coming in, send them information out, and then hope that they'll join up. You need to be able to talk to them. This is a people business. Even though we have so much valuable information that we can send to people through emails and in the post, a telephone really is essential. And as I've suggested there, you need some information to send to prospects, and I'll expand on that over the next couple of slides. Okay, so a good way to get started, if you're thinking about team building, and even if you're not, but you just wanted to sort of try it out and see how it goes, this is your warm list. And basically a warm list is just a list of people that you know. And it can be, you can start off with 5 or 10 or 50 or 100, depending on how many different people you think you know. You would actually be really, really surprised if you had to write a list of as many people as you know. They often say that everybody knows at least 200 people, but you often can't think of them straight away. But what I recommend to get started is just make a list of 10 people that you know and you feel comfortable talking to them. So, it could be friends, family, anybody that you know, really. And then what I normally suggest is that you call them up using the third-party approach. And what I mean by that is, you don't ring them up and say, "Oh, hi Jim, it's Chris. You're always skint, you're always on the scrounge for things. I've got just a thing for you. Would you like to join Kleeneze and earn a bit of money for yourself?" Because chances are they're going to tell you where to go with that. However, if you ring them up and say, "Oh, hi Jim, it's Chris. I hope you're well. Jim, the reason for my call is I've just started this fantastic new business that I'm really excited about. And I wondered if you could do me a favour. If I was to send you some information about it, would you have a little look at it? And if you can think of anybody that might be interested, would you let me know?" So by phrasing it in that way, you're not putting them under any pressure. You're not asking them, "Come on, you might want to join." But actually, by asking them to have a look at it, what you're achieving is two things. One is they are having a look at it, so you never know, they might be interested themselves, or they might actually know somebody who might be interested. So, brother-in-law who's recently been made redundant, or sister-in-law who's just had another baby, doesn't want to go back to a full-time job, but is looking for something part-time to fit around the children. You never know how that will work. So that's a really easy way to do it, and you can add people to your list all the time. So there's on the information that you get with your starter pack, or speak to your upline. There's things called memory jogs, which is basically just a list of all sorts of different kinds of people that you might know that you just wouldn't think about if you were just trying to write it yourself. And another key point here is just to make sure you follow up. Once you've asked them, would they have a look at the information, just give them a call a couple of days later and just say, "Oh, hi Jim, it's Chris. What did you think of that information?" And they might say, "Oh yeah, that looked quite interesting. You never know, I might be interested in that myself sometime." The point is, in a way, it doesn't really matter whether they know anybody now or whether they might be interested themselves now. What you're actually doing is sowing seeds. And this is really, really important, because basically what you've now got is somebody who knows that you have a way to earn a bit of extra money around their current situation. So you never know when their circumstances might change, when they might feel they're getting a bit too far into debt, or their hours are cut at work, or their daughter wants to take driving lessons and they could do with some extra money to help support her, or whatever it might be. By sowing your seeds and telling them that you've got this opportunity, you never know when their circumstances might change, and you want them to come back to you. The last thing that you want is to have somebody, a brother-in-law or somebody, who doesn't know that you do Kleeneze, and then when they do need some extra money and they start looking for something, they join Kleeneze in somebody else's team. What a disaster that would be. So just make sure you let people know. It doesn't really matter at that point whether they join or not. It's just giving you a bit of practice, and it's sowing those seeds. Okay, so the warm list is, if you like, a good starting point just to get you into the habit of talking to people and making sure that the information that you've got together to send out to them is all kind of neat and tidy for them. The next step is to think about where else you might find people who are looking for a way to earn some extra money. And we call this fish pond activity. As you can see there's lots of fish, and these fish kind of represent the people out there in the country who might be looking for a way to earn some extra money. And one of the things that we think about when we're thinking about how can we find those people is, if this was a large pond, if you can imagine the whole country as being a huge pond with whatever 40 million people over 18 that may or may not be interested in earning some extra money. One of the things to compare this with is, if you've ever seen any serious anglers, say at the end of a pier at the sea, or kind of on an evening around a large lake or whatever. I don't know if you've ever noticed, or if any of you are keen anglers, how many fishing rods do you think they use? Any thoughts? Anybody want to offer a suggestion? Wendy says 5, 2 or 3 from Gar. A million from Emma and Michael. Excellent. Use a net, bail. Hey, now we're getting somewhere here. Okay, yeah, Amanda and Andrew, as many as possible. That's it. The point is, different fish will take different baits. So I'm certainly not an angler, but I'm guessing that you might have some fish that like worms, and some that go for flies, some that are down lower, deeper in the lake, and some that are nearer the surface. So anglers will have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different rods, and just sort of at different parts of the water looking for fish. And when you're looking to find people who might be interested in earning some extra money, you need to use exactly the same approach. And this is called how many rods in the pond that you can have. The more rods you have, the better. So this isn't essential for when you get started, but probably fairly soon, once you decide to take the step to do team building, it's useful to get your own website set up. So you can choose a domain name, and that can be pretty much anything you want, apart from Kleeneze rules are that you can't have the word Kleeneze in the first bit of the domain name. So, for example, my domain name that I use is www.freshstartsuccess.co.uk. But it used to be that some people would have Kleeneze27.co.uk, and you're not allowed that these days. But there are lots of domains out there that you can use. I haven't really got the time to go into detail of how you would do that, but if anyone does want to know how to find a domain and set something up, let me know. It's quite simple. Or speak to your sponsor or your upline, because I'm sure they will have one set up anyway. Kleeneze create a template website that you can use, and you can create your domain name and then just point it to that website. So you don't actually need to be a website designer at all. You can just kind of do some basic admin to get a domain name, point it to your Kleeneze website, and then you're up and running basically. There are some other useful tools, contact managers and autoresponders. There's a company called Big Advertising, are one that a lot of Kleeneze distributors use. So have a look at their website. They've got lots of help on there. And what I would recommend actually is that you speak to your upline, because if they're using one particular bit of software, it makes sense if you use the same, simply because then they'll be able to help you out, obviously. So, having got some kind of website and spoken to your warm list, what are the other ways that you can find people who might be earning some extra money? Well, I'm not going to go through them all in detail here. Again, this is just to kind of give you an idea, but if you want some specific information about any of these, shop window adverts is a good one, and we have a couple of experts at the Millionaires College at Sunday. This was absolutely fantastic. Debbie G was asking how many people have got shop window adverts out at the moment. Sorry, not how many people. How many shop window adverts have people got out at the moment? And two people that I remember specifically, Beryl, who'd flown all the way from Jamaica to go to the Millionaires and has flown all the way back again. Beryl had, I can't remember how many you had, Beryl, 50 or 60, something like that. And Wendy Middleton won the chocolate of the day with 150, which is absolutely fantastic. 62, Beryl, there you are. I was close but no cigar. But that's just absolutely fantastic. So if you want any help or tips about how to put shop window adverts out, we have a couple of experts on board tonight. Leaflets is another great way of finding people locally. Leaflets, the big advantage of leafleting is that you can choose a specific area. If you're doing advertising on the internet or something like that, obviously you can find people from all over the country. But if you have a particular area, maybe not too far from where you live, and you think, oh, it'd be really good to have a distributor here, it's, I don't really want to go all that far myself, then you can just go there, put a load of leaflets out around the area and do recruiting that way. So that's a great way of targeting somebody, targeting a particular area. I'm a big believer in, when you're team building and searching, putting different rods in the pond and searching for people who might be interested in joining Kleeneze, nothing's ever free. I mean, your warm list is as close as it'll get, but that might even cost you a cup of coffee if you invite somebody round. But all these other things that we're talking about now are not free, in that they either cost you time or money. So, for example, things like leaflets. Leaflets are pretty cheap, and shop window adverts, in particular the way that Beryl and Wendy are doing it, I know, are very cheap. But it does take you time. You need to go round to the shops, or you need to deliver the leaflets, so it's a cost in terms of your own time. There are other ways to find people, for example, newspaper adverts or internet adverts. These typically take next to no time at all, a 5-minute phone call maybe, or an email, and it can be done. But it will cost you money, because obviously these newspapers, the internet sites will charge for putting an advert out for you. So either time or money, and it depends what you've got. Some people are really, really busy, but they've got enough time to pay for some adverts. Other people are really kind of short of money, but they actually have time to put a lot of leafleting out or shop windows. Lots of others here. I'm not going to go through them all. You can kind of briefly have a look at them now. Again, if anyone has any particular questions about any of them, I'm happy to stay around at the end. Hopefully most of them are fairly obvious. Wearing a badge is just to kind of break the ice. Somebody, you might be just stood in a coffee shop or whatever, and someone gets a bit curious, asking you about what the badge is about. And those badges are normally just very simple badges saying, if you're sick of your job, ask me about mine, or something along those lines, just to kind of generate a bit of curiosity. Business cards that you can just put out all around the place in car parks, or just leave them in kind of shops or near cash machines. People will just pick them up if they're interested. What else you can do? Ad pools. Some of the distributors, typically the more senior ones, will generate a lot of leads through advertising, and you can become part of their pool. I know John Hawkes, for example, has an ad pool. There are specialist companies. Advert Anywhere and Private Eye are two that I know we've used a lot in the past, who are basically you buy a lead, buy leads from them. So again, it's it doesn't take you any time at all to do it, but you have to pay for the leads. Your customers are often really good source, as I said earlier, and 3-foot ruling, which is a bit like wearing a badge. You just kind of chat to anybody. You stood in a queue waiting for the post office or whatever, just start chatting to them about life, the universe, and everything, and then at the end you could just say, "Oh, I don't know if you can help me. I'm just expanding my business in the area. If you know anybody who might be interested in earning a bit of extra money, would you give them my details?" And then you can just hand them a card and take it from there. And as we kind of alluded to earlier, the more rods you use, the more fish you will catch. So hopefully that makes sense. So, what happens then? You put your shop cards out, you've been 3-foot ruling, and all of a sudden, oh no, somebody replies to your advert. My God, what are we going to do next? Right, so the first thing to do is to try to make contact them as quickly as possible. I would say call them within 24 hours. Even if you're just starting and you're a bit unsure about what to say, it really doesn't matter. You will learn so much more by making mistakes and chatting to people than kind of waiting until you've got a perfect script that you think is going to work every time. So don't worry about making mistakes. Everybody does. And the purpose of that first phone call is not to try to explain to them how Kleeneze works. It's just a very brief conversation. You're just having a little bit of rapport. My conversations, if they last more than a minute, I'm sort of thinking, oh, I'm probably waffling on a bit here. Unless they particularly want to talk to you about their situation, in which case I would encourage that. They're obviously feeling comfortable if they are talking to you. But normally I just sort of say, hi, you just replied to one of our adverts, and is it okay if I send you some information about what we do? And then I might just ask them a few questions about their situation and whether they're looking for part-time or full-time, just to really put them at ease, and so that they're aware that there's some information on the way to them. And that the importance of the 24 hours is basically because if they've replied to your advert, they may well have applied to other people's adverts as well. And if you leave it for 3 or 4 days before you get round to contacting them, you'll probably find that they've already spoken to 3 or 4 people, they've looked at a couple of opportunities and they've picked one and they've gone off and started it already. So speed is of the essence, really. So, what do I do? As I say, building a bit of rapport, a brief summary of the opportunities, depending on what kind of advert they've replied to. If they've replied to an advert that's, catalogue deliverers and team leaders, then they've got an idea of what's involved anyway. And if they haven't, you can explain a little bit about it then. To be honest, I think I describe it very little. I just sort of say, is it okay to send you some information? And normally they say, yeah, that's fine, just send it to me. And as I say, I've got a little script which I'm happy to send to people, but you'll be surprised how simple it is. And be excited. People join you, not Kleeneze. You'll be surprised about that. It's often the tone of voice, if you're welcoming them, if you sort of mention their name, they kind of feel, okay, yeah, this is somebody I could talk to. Whereas if you're just kind of coming across as a salesman, Amanda and Andrew, yeah, sorry, I think you might have asked me about this last time. Could you do me a favour, Amanda and Andrew, and let me think. Remind me at the end what your email address is, and then I'll send it over to you. Yes, so, and then just sending the information to them as soon as possible. So again, once you've spoken to them, if they kind of thought, oh yeah, that sounds like a reasonable chap, let's have a look at what he's got to say. If you then take 3 days before you can get the information to them, it's a lot harder for them to, they may well have looked at something else in the meantime. So the sooner you can get it to them, the better. And don't try to sell it to them over the phone. You will occasionally get people who start to ask you questions about it, and I don't mind answering a few questions. But if it starts to get into more of a, they're wanting to understand exactly the nitty gritty and the bits and bobs about how it all works, I always just sort of say, look, I'm really sorry. Would you mind if I send you the information? If you've still got some questions once you've had a look through it all, then I'm more than happy to answer them then. But I've got quite a few phone calls to make, and so I just need to get the information to you as soon as possible, if that's okay, or something along those lines. Occasionally you might have somebody who has a specific question, in which case I think that's fine. You know, don't sort of say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to answer any questions, because you want to try and build a bit of rapport here, not put up a brick wall with them. Okay, so what sort of information should you send these prospects then? So as I've said there, I'm just repeating that, don't try to sell it to them over the phone. There are lots and lots of different what's the word I'm looking for? Sources of information. So, for example, there's an opportunity DVD that head office have got, and like a glossy brochure, which are great, really professional, tell you exactly what's involved, and they're a really good thing. And you can send those in the post. My personal preference actually is to email things to people, because it gets them to them straight away. If you're trying to send something in the post, you know, if you've missed the post that evening and it's the next day before you get it out, and then they're at work the following day, you know, it could be 3 or 4 days before they get a chance to have a look at it. Whereas if you can email it to them, you know, they could be looking at it 5 minutes later. And so if you are emailing, then there's lots of valuable stuff on YouTube, for example, the It Works videos, the Angela Griffin video. If you just go to YouTube and do a search on Kleeneze HQ, there's a Kleeneze account with lots of videos on there, and you can just send links to those videos to your prospects so they can get a really good idea of how it all works and what's involved. Yep, Amanda and Andrew have just put up a link there to a website. That's a really good website that Bob Webb set up, I think, to kind of just explains how the opportunity all works. So as I said there, email if possible. If you can get their email address, the big benefit of this, on top of obviously the speed with which you get the information to them, is that it allows you to start to build a list of prospects. And the reason that's important is when somebody says, and they will, when somebody says, no, sorry, it's not right for me, I'm not sure what I'm looking for, but I don't want to do Kleeneze. What they mean, they don't mean I'm never going to do it, it just means not now. So by hanging on to their details and keeping in touch with them, with emails, with special offers or news about what's coming up, or just little stories about a new team member who just started alongside their full-time job and they're now earning an extra £200 a week, or whatever it might be. You never know when 6, 12, 9, 3 years down the line, somebody's situation changes and they start to think, you know what, that Kleeneze stuff that I keep getting in the mail, maybe now is a good time for me to have a look at it. So that's why things like autoresponders, there's a couple of names there, feel free to have a look at those. Autoresponders are really useful to help you do that, just to keeping in touch with a large number of people that might be interested in joining sometime in the future. What else can you send them? So there are things like the head office leaflet about how to get started. There's company magazines, copies of checks with testimonials. Now the glossy stuff, the company magazines like Team Talk and so on, I tend to send those to people once we've had a few conversations. They may be kind of interested. They often say, well, can I have a look at the catalogue? And I'll actually send them a physical catalogue and maybe one of the glossy magazines as well. And if you're trying to send your magazines out to everybody who replies to an advert, you'll find the cost of your post gets quite high. But also sending copies of checks with the information that you send to them. So again, this doesn't have to be a paper copy. This can just be the testimonials from Gavin's website, for example. And I always like to send kind of 3 little stories. A small one, just kind of somebody earning it £50 a week, having started off, maybe a single mum struggling just to find time around the school run and so on, or somebody else who's earning a reasonable income, say £1,000 a month or more, because that's enough to replace a full-time job if somebody needs to, depending on obviously what their job was, or and also it's worth sending out an example of a story of somebody who's getting large checks, so £5,000 a month or more, just showing what a fantastic lifestyle you can achieve with Kleeneze if you put the effort in that you need to. There's lots of press articles about. Press articles are good because they kind of give that third-party credibility, if you like, to what's been going on within Kleeneze. Okay, so I mentioned earlier it's useful to have some kind of lead book to keep track of your prospects, your leads. So what I recommend is that for every prospect you write down their name and their contact details, and keep a note of their current status. And what I mean by that is, if you've managed to speak to them, or if you've sent them some information, or if they said they're going to have a look at it in a couple of days, or whatever they are at that point in time, any useful information about them. So they might have mentioned, I want to have a chance to have a look at it today. I've got to go into a hospital to see my kids, or little Jimmy, or my dad, or whatever it might be. And information like that can be useful when you're ringing them back again. You can just be friendly and ask about, oh gosh, how was your granddad when you went to visit him, or whatever it might be. Make a note of when you contacted them and have a plan for when you're going to contact them next. So obviously you can see if you're kind of trying to memorize all that information for more than 4, 5, 6 people, you'll soon get it mixed up or forget it. So on top of that, what other things can you do to encourage your prospects to take a look at the business? Well, inviting them to events is a great thing to do. If you're recruiting locally and you've got an opportunity meeting near you, then invite them along. It's a great way, they can go for an hour one evening just to get a real feel for the buzz and learn a bit more about it. For people who are more serious, then there's obviously the millionaires colleges, the company events that are on as well. And if you do have a guest coming along, I would just warn them of the dress code. It's kind of smart casual, but if it's a builder who comes along and he's covered in paint and muck and that, he might feel a little bit out of place. But to be honest, nobody's going to sort of stop people from coming in just because they're not wearing a tuxedo or something. Make sure you get there nice and early so that they're not feeling kind of as if they stood around waiting. So get there nice and early before them. And then when they do come, introduce them to other members of your team or your upline or the other people at the opportunity meeting. Make sure you make them feel welcome so they can see that they would be part of something big. The following up, which I mentioned, that basically this is really, really important part. Once you've spoken to them and you've sent them some information and they've said, yeah, I'll have a look at that tonight or tomorrow or over the weekend, ringing them up just to say what did they think about it will get you 10 times more team members than if you just leave it and wait for them to contact you. Not because they might not want to contact you, but life gets in the way. If you just leave it to them, they'll sort of, they'll put a DVD down to one side and they'll think they'll have a look at it. But if you just ring them up, it'll remind them and they'll say, oh yeah, you know what, I was going to have a look at that. Hold on, let me have a look at it now. I'll call you back in half an hour. And just by reminding people about it, you'll get them to have a look at the information again. So just once you've sent them the information, call them back a day or two later. Just ask, what did you think? And let them talk. It's really, really important here to listen to what people are saying. Don't try to, as I said, don't try to sell them the idea. And one thing I find, you will find a lot of people that say, oh no, I don't think it's for me. There's lots of kind of common reasons why people don't join. They might say, I don't think I'm going to have time for it. Or they might say, oh, there's already somebody who does it around here. What I find works really, really well is just agree with them. Just sort of say, oh yeah, you know what? When I first started, I felt exactly the same. But you know what I found was, when I started doing it, I was picking up orders in between when the other person was delivering to. So even though I was delivering to the same streets, because they were just doing their regulars now, that's where I found all my customers. So you're not disagreeing. You're not saying, oh no, it doesn't work like that. You're kind of agreeing with them so that they don't feel antagonized, if you like. But you're just saying that you felt the same and you found that it worked in this way. And that's just a really good way just to kind of extend the conversation, build the rapport a bit more. You might not convince them to join, but to be honest, you don't want to convince somebody. You want them to decide themselves. Otherwise, they'll be constantly blaming you whenever there's a rainy day or anything. As I've said there, don't persuade them to join. Make sure that they decide for themselves. So when you then get one of your one of your prospects who then says, yeah, I'm really interested now, I'd like to join, what do I need to do? When you're first sponsoring a distributor, I would suggest you get your upline to help you, but it's actually a lot simpler now. But always do the sign up with them. The way you sponsor somebody, if you haven't done it before, is you basically send them a link from the Kleeneze website. It's an email that goes to them, and then from the email they click on a link and then they follow the steps. And it was often common, and I had this before, where team members who were trying to sign somebody up would send them the email and say, all right, I've sent you the email, off you go then, and then just leave them to do it. And until about a month ago, I would say it used to take 20 or 30 minutes to go through that, and people were just losing 80% of all the people that they sent links to, because there were questions about credit, asking about what the interest rate would be, and after having to fill in kind of credit agreements and all sorts of things, and people would just be going through it and thinking, oh, you know what, this is looking a bit more complicated, I'm not sure I want to do this, and they'd give up. it's actually a lot simpler now. So it typically only takes about 10 minutes, and there are only 4 steps, and one of the steps is just all the terms and conditions. And a lot of people, what I've found over the last month or so, say, to be honest, I'm going to have a look at the terms and conditions later on rather than do it all now over the phone. So normally within 10 minutes they're kind of up and running, and it's a lot simpler these days. But I still recommend talking it through with them, either face to face if they live nearby, or over the phone, because it's simple, but you don't want to lose the opportunity of a distributor for the sake of 10 minutes on the phone. So as I said there, you send them an email, you can see the screenshots that they will see. If you go into the distributor support arena, follow those links: operations, manuals and guides, online registration guide, and then you can kind of see the screens that they'll be going through. And as I said, it's much simpler now. Anticipate any questions that they might have. So they might want to know about delivery charges, for example. So if you know these days they get I think it's now 2 months of £150 delivery before they have to get to £250 for free delivery. And welcome to the then immediately, as soon as they've kind of joined up, you welcome them to the team, either at that point once they've kind of completed that, or soon after, within the next day or two. Just make sure you understand what they want from Kleeneze, whether they're just looking for an extra £50 a week, in which case obviously you're going to be focusing on the retail side at the beginning, or some people are really looking to build some serious money or replace full-time income and might want to know more about the team building right from day one. So that will obviously help you decide what kind of training you should be offering them. Phew, gosh, sorry guys, I feel like I've been going at 90 miles an hour for the last half an hour, but hopefully that all kind of made sense. So hopefully what you should have an idea of now is whether or not you have to build a team, why I believe you should build a team if you can, what tools you'll need, a good way to get started. As I said there, the warm list is always a good way, a selection of different rods that you can use, and there are many more. Speak to your upline to get help with those. What to do when you then get a lead, what information to send to those prospects, and how to follow up. So hopefully that all makes sense. So there we are. Next week is number 5, supporting your new team members. So now that you've got all these team building skills, I expect you all to go out and spend a week of manic putting your rods in the pond, generating lots of leads, and finding somebody who wants to join, signing them up, and then next week you'll be raring to go on how to support them. So I'm just going to stop the recording now, so bear with me a moment.